and click subscribe so that you don't miss out on other shows all across the station. Good morning, Rotus, and happy welcome back to work day.
Yeah, good morning, Zibby. And yes, good to be back on a fresh Monday morning for another week in this new month of March.
All right, so we're talking about business owners who are defying the Supreme Court and are still rejecting the old Naira notes.
Yeah, if you look at, there was the headlines in Sunday Tribune and the Daily Post. The Tribune was looking at traders that were ignoring the old Naira notes. And basically, just to backtrack, I think it was Friday that the Supreme Court, was it Thursday, that the Supreme Court made a decision saying that the Naira notes, that is the old Naira notes, the 500 and the 1,000, should be used all the way till the end of the year. That was the decision that they that they put forward. I remember I think they adjourned their decision from February the 22nd, and then now pushed it back until after the presidential election. And yeah, that was a decision. That's what, that was a decision that was made, but we've seen that there's not been that much compliance with respect to their decision.
And there's so many legal aspects of this that need to be talked about. In fact, on Lagos Talks today, we're getting a legal expert, so we can just look at that bit. But let's get into the conversation this morning.
Yeah.
Very interesting. But I'm surprised. Does anyone actually still have the old Naira notes?
Yeah, okay. So I thought I had gotten rid of all of them, but then I was doing laundry and I found some in the pockets of one of my trousers. And I thought, oh yeah. So I said, oh no, I didn't know they were there. And so I was like, what am I going to do? And so I just decided to conduct, an experiment or a survey across a number of businesses. So Friday night, was at a restaurant, and I asked them if they would take the old notes. And I told them, hey, look, Supreme Court, there's a new order. So here you go. And they refused. The restaurant refused to take them, saying that they didn't have any direction from management on taking the notes. Saturday, went to do my normal errands, went to do grocery shopping at the supermarkets and so on to buy normal stuff you buy over the weekend. Tried to pay with the old notes at the supermarket. They said the same thing that the restaurant said. They said management has not given us any direction. We're not taking the notes. But I repeated it. I said, hey, listen, I understand what your management has said, but the Supreme Court has made this decision. You should be happy. You should be taking these notes. You should be fine. And they said no. And then went to buy bread at a couple bakeries. Same thing. Tried to pay with the notes. They said, no, sir. One of the bakers said, my madam has not given me an instruction yet. The other one said, our guys have not given us the instruction yet. I tried. I was like, listen, I know that, but the Supreme Court, this is what they said. You should be able to take these notes. They did not agree. Where else did I go? I tried to buy fuel with the notes, and the fuel attendant said he has to hear from Buhari first, which I thought was very, very interesting. He said he wants to hear from the president. And then I was at the airport, the old MM1 domestic airport. And there was a long line at the parking lots where you pay for parking. They had one line. They had one line for POS or electronic payments. They had another line for cash. Right. They also refused. In fact, it was so rowdy there. I gave the guy the notes. He gave it back to me. I was like, no, I want to pay you. Not just so. He was like, look, next, who is next after him? Who wants to go and go?
Like, I don't have time for this.
Long. They weren't wasting any time. The line was so long. I just quickly pulled out a new note and then paid and then left. So across the board, I even, I think Saturday night went out as well to an eatery. They also refused, saying that their management has not given them a direction. So across the board, restaurants, bakery, supermarket, airport parking lots, fuel, no one was willing to take those notes.
So what can we take away from your research?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. We don't seem to regard orders from the Supreme Court. It looks like people, even on Twitter, people were telling me that, hey, listen, people want to hear from the president and the central bank, because they seem to regard the president and the central bank as higher authorities than the Supreme Court, because of the fact that for the central bank, they are the ones, the monetary authority in charge of the notes. So I thought that was very interesting. Also, how many more old notes are really out there? Because a lot of people turned in their old notes into the banks. I already deposited mine, but then found this tiny little stash of notes. In fact, there was an experiment. I even tried it out, and you are open to partaking in this experiment as well, Zibby. If you want the money, you can transfer the equivalent to me electronic, and I'll give you the cash. No one has taken me up on that offer so far. So it's
no one is trying to get stuck with money that they're not certain that they can use.
which is interesting since again, the Supreme Court has said they can use it. So that's a very interesting one there.
All right, let's look at some messages coming through. Benga says, should compliance of the Supreme Court ruling not start with the president and the CBN governor? They have to lead the way. It's just incredible that till now, nothing from the two above. I still have about 3,000 Naira of the old notes I found in an envelope among my documents. Deji says, are the courts taking the old notes? They are also guilty of rejecting the old notes. So what do they expect others to do? And Jonah says, until we hear from the CBN or President Buhari, everyone would have to spend their old notes at the Supreme Court. In any case, as far as the independence of the CBN is concerned, not even the Supreme Court can compel them to change this policy. All right, so let's take a trip around the country to Kaduna. This is something similar that's happening in Kaduna. And I recall the governor, even before the Supreme Court ruling, had continued to insist that residents in Kaduna should accept and trade with the old currency notes.
Yeah, that is correct. Governor El Rufai, he's been very vocal about this. He openly defied the president and the CBN, and from the beginning has told Kaduna residents to use old notes. But according to this story in the Tribune, no, not in the Daily Post, people in Kaduna are not taking that. I even watched a TV interview where one of the TV stations went to their correspondents in Kaduna, was asking people, and one of the ladies there said the same thing that our listeners are sending in their messages, that until they hear from the CBN and the president, they're not going to take the old notes, which I think is so interesting, because for the fact that people, and Benga put it in his message as well, people want to hear, they said, the CBN and the president have been quiet about this. Well, if they can be quiet all they want, the Supreme Court has spoken, whether you want to be quiet or speak. This is the highest court in the land. Once they've said, take the notes, I would assume that is that, and everybody should start taking the notes. So the fact that the mind is very interesting. The fact that people still want to hear from the president and the CBN on this, and the word of the Supreme Court is not enough. And then it just tells you, this is one of the characteristics of money. If you don't accept it as value, if people do not accept, that's one of the characteristics. If people do not accept money as a legal tender, which the old notes are, then it's worthless. So you have to accept it before. So it's a really interesting. Nigeria is a fascinating place. I hope business schools in this country are taking note of everything that's happened. It's been a fascinating period of time. When you think about monetary economics.
But do you think that perhaps the Supreme Court could have done things differently with regards to the decision that it came to?
Yeah, I would have thought that the Supreme Court would have at least told the central bank to print more old notes. Excuse me, print more new notes, excuse me, because
Mm.
I don't know how many more old notes are out there. I don't know, like Benga said he found 3,000 Naira. You know, I only found a few. So I don't know how many people, even though you're telling people that they can go and spend the old notes, the reason why you've seen all these long lines and people, you know, people have turned those notes in and don't have access. So I would have thought the Supreme Court would have told, you know, placed them, sent the order down to the CBN to just print more new notes and make them available. Because it's not that many, I don't know how many people still have access to these old notes. So that's what I thought that they could have done differently, because this is an issue of access, you know, getting
Mm.
access to those notes. So yeah.
All right, let's take a few messages. OG says, weekends are for resting. What is all this wakadube? It's called research, OG.
Yeah, so I had to do the research for the show. I
Just doing
had
his
to do
job.
it.
Michael says, I think the Supreme Court's judgment is impacting the independence of CBN negatively. Imagine, I paid with the old note at a bar last night, and after leaving, I felt like I cheated the guy. Oh, I feel
Are
like
you
going back to
serious?
change that note. I think we should stop accepting the notes.
See, there you go. Very interesting. You know, it's just interesting seeing how everybody has been reacting to this. Very much
Mm.
so.
We've got just under a minute, but I have to ask this. What does this mean for Nigeria's cashless future in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I would hope it would accelerate it, you know. There's still the issue of the networks and how they work, you know, the POS and so on, and transfers. I think there've been less complaints. I think things have subsidized, but subside.
I still
But
have a lot of
no,
complaints. Maybe
aha,
it's
okay.
just
So
my
things,
bank.
all right, there you go. So things haven't changed much. So that's evidence there that we still have a ways to go with respect to getting ourselves cashless. We still have to make sure we have stronger networks, and the banks and other fintechs have to step up.
All right. Well, that is all the time that we have. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your messages. And of course, thank you to your Rotus as well for joining us.
Thanks, Zibby. See you guys tomorrow.
All right. Do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
Brought to you by Etisalat. Some solutions. My name is IBK Spaceship Boy. I inspire my world with music on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love rap. Stay tuned.